Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Brian Plays. And as the castle looms into the foreground, you can see that we are going to be looking at Castlevania 64 for the Nintendo 64, a game that was developed by Konami, specifically their Kobe division. That violin solo was performed by Tomokuni Katayama, and that's a rendition of Bloodlines from Castlevania Rondo of Blood. So this game focuses on two protagonists. We're gonna choose Reinhardt because he represents that old school whip style like the earlier Castlevania games.
Transylvania, in the mid-19th century, the province of Wallachia. In this time of peace and plenty, no one foresees the return of ancient horrors. But the old legends live, and soon the land will again be plunged into darkness. The people have returned to the path of wickedness, and the bonds that seal their evil ruler's spirit are weakening. Reinhardt Schneider, heir to the ancient Belmont clan of vampire hunters. His blood dooms him to oppose the might of Count Dracula. Wielding the holy whip of his ancestors, the young vampire killer begins his quest.
So Reinhardt's related to the Belmont clan, and playing the game as Carrie can be fun because she has magical abilities, but it doesn't feel like a Castlevania game without you having a whip.
Courage, don't leave me.
When I first played this, I literally jumped out of my skin when I heard that because I had the TV on loud. So this game was released in North America on January 26, 1999. And as you watch the cutscene here, the game has great musical cues and a lot of scares, and it has a lot of elements of survival horror, even though it is an action platformer of the 3D variety. So here you're introduced to your first real enemy, your basic skeleton that reanimates and comes back to life. So that item is a power-up for your whip. You can power it up again to make your whip longer and stronger, and it gets more red. But like I said, the game came out January 26, 1999, and here's your first mini-boss, the giant skeleton. He's pretty simple to beat as long as you keep jumping around and avoid his club. When he glows purple, you know you're hitting him. But this game got its first sneak peek in April of '97 at a Tokyo Game Show. And when the Kobe division of Konami took over, it was known as Dracula 3D. So when word got over to the States that this game was in development, people dubbed it Dracula 64. But once the Castlevania name came out, a lot of people were excited because Nintendo 64 had been out for over a year, and people wanted to see the old franchises from the NES in the 3D landscape. Zelda already came out a year earlier, so you know people were excited about this game. And the game did get pretty good reviews. You know, it's the early stages of 3D games, so it does look a lot choppy today. In my opinion, the sound is great. But the main problems of the game always go back to controls and the camera, which you'll see later on. But the game does have some traditional elements from the older Castlevania games. Like Reinhardt here, we're not going to focus on Carrie right now. Maybe I'll showcase another playthrough with her. But Reinhardt has the whip. And he has a tiny sword. And like old Castlevania games, ammo for your tertiary weapons was hearts. This time it's the like red crystals. And there are some puzzle elements to this game as well. Not just a platformer. Here you gotta watch out. This is the should be a were-tiger here. You don't want to get him close to you because he'll really damage you if he gets a hold of you. But if you keep on jumping around and whipping back, you'll kill him. So, like the older Castlevania games, you want to break the torches to get ammo or money. Or power-ups, like you just saw there. Those are special skeletons that you hear. If you hear a fuse being lit, you want to keep on moving. They're like, I call them kamikaze skeletons because they'll run into you and blow up. You can either run to avoid them or use your tertiary weapons. Now, the tertiary weapons that you have are the traditional weapons that you have in earlier Castlevania games. You have the knife, which takes up 1 crystal of ammo. That's your weakest weapon. But then you have the axe, which is a little stronger. And it costs 2 crystals. You have holy water, which requires 3 crystals. And that's good because the holy water can actually stay for a few seconds on the ground. And over there is the cross. That's the most powerful tertiary weapon, but it requires 5 crystals. But it kind of hits all the enemies and comes back to you. And at this point, you just want to keep getting money, which you'll see why you need it later. And you want to keep searching for items. That little clear crystal you saw is a save crystal. It's important to save your game often, especially for this game. And sometimes you'll see that skipping around or jumping around is a lot more effective than just running in place. You'll cover more ground and it's easier to avoid enemies. And the health items in this game are just like the old Castlevania. You have the roast beef and the roast chicken. These platforms are very difficult to navigate through. It's the camera. Your best bet is practice, practice, practice. And a lot of times if you get to the edge of a platform, that you have to wait for the camera to adjust. These blocks look like Tetris pieces. Every time you see a torch, you should always break it to get ammo. And you want to check out these mausoleums as well. But you got to be careful that, yeah, especially these skeletons, don't follow you inside. Now, if you notice in the top left corner of the screen, you actually have the game has a built-in clock. And it denotes daytime and nighttime based on 6 a.m. for sunrise, which is daytime, obviously, and 6 p.m., which signifies nighttime. And over here is a secret invisible platform. There's a lot of those in the game that, through trial and error, you'll find. And basically, if you beat the game and you collect these items, that's the holy water. If you beat the game and have those items found, you can get different, they can get a different costume the next time you play. And that's your first werewolf. You want to always keep them centered on your screen. So right now, if you look at the time, it's daytime. One of the producers of this game was Etsunobu Ibisu, and he eventually founded Goodfeel, which is a video game company, and they made games such as Wario Land, Shake It, and Kirby's Epic Yarn, and Yoshi's Woolly World, among other games. See, like that was an invisible item. You always want to check. You'll find different, almost like landmarks in the level that you can search, and usually you get items. They could be signs, or in one instance, there's a shovel in the ground that you go up to. Later on, when you go inside the villa, there'll be a lot of items hidden in like cabinets and behind chairs. It's always important to explore in this game. You can only have 10 of each item, so if you're really good at the game, eventually you won't be able to carry any more items. See, as it approaches 6 p.m., the time indicator will change to a moon. There we go. Now it's nighttime. So if you go up to this drawbridge that's raised, you'll see your old skeleton shrine again. And yes, you'll see skeletons on motorcycles. And I'm just as baffled as you are about that, considering it's the mid-1900s, the 19th century. Those bikers remind me of the ones from Batman Returns. Yeah, Reinhardt is very low on health. If you're a beginner, I would strongly advise to use your roast chicken or even a roast beef. But if you're an expert player, you'll know that once you defeat this boss, you go into the next area and you get your health back. So if you think you can survive, I wouldn't get a health item. There you go, you get all your health back. So your basic tips that you'll be learning at this point is to save as often as possible, use your projectile weapons if you see an enemy at a distance, especially if they're throwing stuff at you. And you want to break every torch, and if you gotta run away from an enemy, you should keep jumping. I think the game does a great job of being cinematic, and it's really good on atmosphere. Now, people today would complain that Reinhardt barely has a face and that his feet are pointy, but you know, this is the transition age of games, going from 2D to 3D. It was very awkward and clumsy, but you know, for me, this game has a lot of nostalgic value. But in today's standards, most people would look at the game and say, oh, it's terrible. Especially since they knew that the older Castlevania games were classics. And, you know, they even had Symphony of the Night for PS. And that was a classic game, too. So, you know, I can see why people were kind of disappointed in this game, but it doesn't deserve half the flack that it gets. Now this would be considered level 2, the castle wall. You want to be careful with the, you want to eliminate all the enemies you see, and watch out for the guillotines, because they're timed to fall. And you want to watch out for the Bass and the Medusa heads, which are classic enemies in the Castlevania franchise. This is really the first area of the game where you realize that you're going to be going for your lives unless you take it easy. Then there'll be some instances where you have to actually rush. So you need to be accurate and with your jumping ability and your timing. You also got to be smart too. This is the Hydra enemy. When you break off their heads, you get a lot of items. Running back towards the camera will help you avoid those flames. Sometimes it's tricky when every item is piled on like that. If you want to keep one of your tertiary weapons, you might lose it by accident. So you can see all of the items we've acquired so far. The sun card and the moon card are very important because there's certain areas in the game that are affected by day and night. And if you're at the wrong time of the day and you want to rush things, you can use a sun card to make it 6 a.m. or use a moon card to make it 6 p.m. Here's another area where the camera starts to become an issue. Now this game does have a targeting system, but it's nowhere near as good as Zelda, Ocarina of Time. Now, you could stay in this area and continually whip the skeletons. I know that never gets old, whipping the heads off the skeletons. And you can also pretty much get all the money that you want. Now we get to the other side of the tower. This part has a few more obstacles added to it. It's more difficult. Keep moving on these stairs, too. Because you never know when things will break away. Just 2 and 4 here we move. So just go from the first to the third. When you jump to a new area, you want to make sure the enemies are killed because they can push you back. And up here, it has to be night to get through there. So we're lucky that it's night. You don't have to use a moon card or wait. Gee, you think we should go back? I don't think so. If they gave you an option to go back or to continue and you hit go back, it should just say game over. So, you know, you can save here and grab your chicken, because you're going to be going down now to the next area of the game. Now we can begin heading towards the villa. And immediately we're going to be attacked by some Cerebus. Cerebus is the three-headed dog. But you can take him out with a few strong whips. Just keep on moving. Such a classic gate opening sound effect. Now you'll have some fire spin in the Cerebon. They're a little more difficult, but you know, just avoid the flames. Now things are getting serious. This is the flame Cerebus. Whip and use your projectiles against them. And over here, there's an invisible platform that you can get up on. There you go. And the reason we used a moon card to make it night is because there's an area in the courtyard that when it's midnight, you have access to a bunch of items. So, you know, it's a few more hours, but it'll be midnight soon. The architecture in this game is predominantly inspired by French castles. So the villa's exterior is based on the western facade of the Chateau d'Azay-les-Redoux in the French's Loire Valley. And Dracula's castle is from the famous Mont Saint-Michel on the coast of Normandy. And here's your first look at a vampire. You want to keep whipping and don't go near them. Wasn't too bad with a full power up whip and the holy water. If you whip him, you can get some items, but we'll have opportunity later for that. Now, this area of the game really reminds me of Resident Evil. Now, if the vampire got a hold of you and bit you, you could change your status from good to vampire, which isn't good. You won't be able to use any food items or your whip. You can only use the sword. So that's where you have the purifying, which comes in play right there. Purifying will cleanse your blood and put your status from vampire to good. And the cure ampule will negate your poison status. And now that it's almost midnight, if we go back out here, you'll see a platform appear right now. So it's midnight, and you can climb that and get some items. And you can get your cards back too that you used. Now this part of the game might have turned people off because this is straying away now from the older Castlevania games. We actually have to explore. It's non-linear. which I know people didn't have a problem with that in Symphony of the Night. But that was a better designed game. But if you're used to Castlevania 1 or Castlevania 4 and Castlevania 3, this is a style that strays very differently from those games. We'll have to head back to the Rose Garden at sunrise. But there's a few missions that we have to do here. We do have to get some keys. A key that would take you out to the garden maze. A key for the storeroom. I think the music here is very creepy too. And here we meet Rosa. She waters the white roses with blood from victims of the vampire. Creeped out yet? This game is supposed to make you feel very intimidated, like you're alone, and anything can come out and grab you. So always check the furniture for items. Is he a friend or a foe? I always imagine Sean Connery talking as Charlie Vincent. He's a self-proclaimed master vampire killer. And of course he's wearing a select design of holy crosses and assorted vampire killing gear. It's the latest design in vampire hunting. So I believe if you didn't see Rosa, you wouldn't have gotten the archive key from him. You'd have to go back to talk to him again. Watch out for these stained glass knights that come after you. Now, who could have just walked in? No reflection. It's your old buddy, the vampire. But he's just a minor servant of the true Dracula. Now, whip the bat before it disappears, and you'll get some money. Alright. Remember, always check the furniture. Now, if this was a room that had zombies in it, wouldn't this be Resident Evil? There's some ghosts in here that you gotta look out for. Chicken on the wall. And you can break these vases. Now at this point you should have gathered at least 10,000 gold. And where you can use the gold is here. Meet Reinhardt. He reminds me of Robert Englund, the actor that plays Freddy Krueger. So we have Sean Connery and Robert Englund starring in Castlevania 64. So he's your demon contractor. He's gonna help you along the way, buy items and whatnot. He's almost like the merchant in Resident Evil 4. Now, there's a few conditions in this game that must be met, or avoided, I should say, for you to get the true ending in the game. Now, I'm not going to spoil what's in the ending until later, when we come across it. But if you let 16 days go by in the game, you can't get the best ending. If you spend over 30,000 gold, you can't get the best ending. Now we come to the infamous hedge maze. There's a lot of story in the villa. It's a little boy who needs help. Now you can consider this part level 4, the castle garden. And if you know your Latin roots, you might be able to figure some things out by this conversation. But I'm not telling. Some voice acting, that's good. Now you want to avoid these hellhounds. You won't be able to kill them. If they grab a hold of you, you're better off using the sword. Now this is where skipping helps. It doesn't matter how embarrassing it makes you look on screen. You want to keep on skipping. And yeah, these hellhounds, whoa! Yep, that's Leatherface, ladies and gentlemen. It's really Frankenstein's monster, but it might as well be Leatherface. He will hunt you down. You do not want to stop. And I don't know how Frankenstein's monster got a chainsaw in the mid-19th century, but he has one. Now, the hellhounds, like you just saw, will grab a hold of you and not let go until Frankenstein cuts you up. They'll be back too. You gotta listen to the sounds. That's very important. Is he a man, Reinhardt? Is he? Now, I used to play, when I was living with my sister when we were younger, we would, compromise that I would get the games to play, but she would listen to music. So I would play the games a lot on mute. And this is a game that, you do not want to play on mute. because you have those kamikaze skeletons in the beginning. If you don't hear that fuse, and you're listening to like Ace of Base and it's the mid-90s, you're not going to hear the sound and you're going to get hit. Same thing goes with the hedge maze. You got to hear what's coming up behind you. And if you're listening to, well, let's see, it's 1999, you're listening to your favorite boy band from your sister's CD player, it's not going to be good for this game. Yeah, if he ever gets in your path, you just jump over him. But you gotta keep moving. You can always climb the stairs there too, and swipe at the torch and jump off. But once you open a locked door, they're not gonna be able to get you. Now, this part might be frustrating because of the camera angles, but, I mean, the developers did meet the demands of providing a creepy environment. You were on your toes at this part of the game. So we get to the coffin, and we have another cinematic. Apparently you're not alone in this crypt. Apparently your little vampire buddy's been feeding on somebody. Now, his patterns aren't really much different from when you attack them in the villa. Just keep on moving. Look for the shadow and avoid it. This is one of my favorite parts. Perfect foreground stare. When she's crawling around, that's when you whip her and throw your holy water. When she rises, you want to scatter around. Pay attention to the bats and the mist. Keep an eye on your health, but if you think you can make it, don't heal up. Don't heal up again, remember. You can hit those torches too. Now, if you get bitten by one of the vampires, use your purifying. And of course, the coffin in the crypt leads to your path forward. Now, if you were playing as Carrie, this would lead you to a different area of the game. So you do get some replay value with a couple of different levels for each character. Originally, this game was going to have 4 protagonists, but development was taking a long time in 97 and 98. So they decided to drop those 2 characters and focus more on the level design and the story between Reinhardt and Carrie. But yeah, one day I'll showcase a Carrie playthrough. Now, what's this beautiful girl doing in the muck? No thank you. These are the spider women. Kind of attractive until you saw her 8 legs. My big theme of this game is deception. Things aren't what they seem. And you see that in almost every level. You don't want to land in here. It's like falling into a pit. You'll die in one fall. This is probably my least favorite level. Those spiders can poison you with that green stuff. And once again, if you're listening to music and you have the game muted, you won't be hearing the scuttle of the legs. It's a very audio-centric game. I believe there's more holy water here. We're in good shape. And once you gather those red crystals in the beginning of the game, the most you can have is 99. Your ammo should be pretty high. Now, it's easy to get lost here. That campfire is kind of like a wayward marker. Because a lot of these cavernous areas look the same. Sometimes you can avoid the spiders as well. Well, when you're that good, you don't need the items. If you can't pick up a piece of meat, use one. No matter, even if you have 90% of your health, and then pick up the meat again. And sometimes it's tough to pick up a specific item. It keeps on going to the other one. There we go. Trying to camouflage into the wall. Now, if you were Carrie, you'd be in the underground waterway. Instead of spiders, you'd be dealing with lizard men, like the Lizoflos in Zelda. Now, I'll compare a lot of things in this game to Zelda. But in almost every instance, it's inferior in this game. But That's the unfortunate pressure that this game had. It had to live up to Zelda, which was selling out everywhere a couple of months before this game came out. So, from this point on, any game similar to Zelda in style and in gameplay is going to be compared to that game. And when you deal with the spiders, it's always important to check your status at the top of the screen, because sometimes you'll be poisoned and you'll not even realize it. Just take your time and tap the analog stick softly and let the camera just adjust while you move. This area is very glitchy too, I noticed. Yeah, we can avoid that room instead of wait for daytime or waste a sun card, because it was just Renan's contract was in there to buy items, which we obviously don't need. If an enemy goes down, just be patient. Here's an example where you can just fill up your health, no matter how little of it is taken away, just so you can get the chicken back. Sometimes it's best just to avoid those spiders. Now this area is like a train station. You'll see soon that there's gondolas that you have to ride on. And that raises the difficulty even higher. And of course the camera is facing you and you want it to look the other way. Just take it slow. See? Once the camera adjusts, then you can keep going. And to a lot of people, this was unacceptable to have the camera like that. But it was the 90s. Some franchises capitalized on the camera, and some had trouble with it. Alright, it's time for the gondola part. These are rock crushers. I would imagine they were used to crush the rocks to get the ore out. Now, be ready for enemies. You're gonna watch out for Medusa faces, bats, and bone dragons. You know, you can use your projectiles or your long whip. If you get hit, you can be knocked off, and it's instant death. And you gotta stay to the right over there, otherwise those things will knock you off. So it's important to save. Now, at one point, you're gonna have to switch gondolas too. But you gotta keep watching out for the enemies. This is basically your stop. You get off. This is very similar to the New York City subway system after midnight. You got to keep your eyes peeled for a blue gondola and just step off. I used to jump for some reason when I was younger, and I'd always fall off. This one's a little faster too. Pretty much have to stand firm. Sometimes it's hard to tell when you're coming towards the enemy. You'll be at a weird angle and your whip won't hit. But stay in the front too, because you know if you get hit, you'll have some room to fall back on. I used to think I had to make a switch here too. No, it was just letting you know that your station's coming up. "34th Street, stand clear for closing doors." Alright, once you get through this part, you're almost at the home stretch of the tunnels. There's just one more tricky part coming up. And it's right here. Sometimes it looks like you won't be able to latch on to the ledge, like right here. Just have faith and keep pressing towards it. If you're brave, you can get this. I think you can make it right from here. It's daytime, you can go in. It's Rosa. It looks like she's about to do something. try to stop her from killing herself. Well, Reinhardt is a softie. How's this going to affect the rest of his adventure? Well, we'll soon find out. We're going to stop it here, and we'll continue the next half of the game next time.